Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Economic Preppers. I'm joined, as always, by Patrick and Dylan, and we have a special guest today who I will make on the larger screen right now. That is Tristan, and here's a nice view of his page here. Let me get a better view. This is his Twitter account, which is at Bitcoin and Beef, and also he is a author of the book Bitcoin and Beef, which has led him on quite an interesting journey since he's written the book. So, welcome aboard, Tristan.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Patrick, Dylan, good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah. Great to have you on board. And I know that you just did a great conversation with Dylan. So I'm going to pass the talking stick over to Dylan to lead us off, as we have plenty of questions all around the board. But Dylan, please continue your great conversation. And I'll post a link to your conversation with Tristan as well. But go ahead and kick it off, Dylan.
Yeah, of course. So it's great to have you on the Economic Preppers show. Just as we're here as the Economic Preppers, and our whole idea is how to be prepared and not scared, right? How to leverage the resources around you to make the most out of your life, right? And we focus on things like Bitcoin being decentralized. I know we talked about decentralizing your life. We talk a lot about bartering, trading, talking about acquiring resources that will be essential in times of uncertainty, or just like to improve the quality of your life. So I want to talk a little bit about your book for our audience here who aren't familiar with that. And then I also want to talk a lot about today about how people can start like decentralizing their life more. So acquiring high quality meats, acquiring high quality food sources, living their lifestyle in a way that enhances their health, their fitness, and things like that, because I know like you embody a lot of that. So just to kick things off, tell us a little bit about the book, what it's about, and just a little bit about what inspired you to write it and how your life has kind of changed and the doors have been opened since writing this book.
Yeah, totally. So, I was kind of having these two passions of mine, which was, health and then simultaneously Bitcoin or crypto, and then got really into the, Bitcoin rabbit hole, March 2020, of course, as many other people did with the macroeconomic environment. And yeah, I kind of realized I was passionate about these two topics for the same reason. After going down the self-healing rabbit hole from having too many concussions, I really got into health optimization and, healed myself. And now I'm at a better place 5 years ago than I was before the injury. But yeah, I really, realized that I was interested. I was passionate about these topics for the same reason. And that was because, these items, Bitcoin, regenerative agriculture, health optimization, they really allow you to be in the driver's seat of your life, to decentralize your life, to be in control, and that's what it's all about, I think. Instead of outsourcing the quality of your life, oftentimes for convenience sake, to very centralized systems, government entities, corporations. And yeah, there's a lot of books out there on Bitcoin. There's a lot of books out there on health optimization. There's a lot of books on, soil health, regenerative ag. But I kind of wanted to tie it all together because for me, it's the greater picture of becoming a more decentralized person on a broader scale and not just, siloed topics. And yeah, it was fantastic. I learned a ton. So I write about, the common criticisms of, beef, the nuances of beef and Bitcoin. For example, they're both bad for the environment, whether that's through energy consumption or CO2 emissions. And that's often slandered in the media. So I try to do a good job of kind of attacking the common criticisms that are painted for both of these subjects, and then tie them together. Why is our food system, why is our ag system so messed up, as well as our banking, pharmaceutical, healthcare systems. And it all goes back to a broken monetary system since 1971. And even before that, creation of the Federal Reserve in the early 20th century, kind of just gone down this fiat rabbit hole. And that's led to, fiat food, fiat ag, fiat healthcare across the board. So that's led to just a lower quality life. And that's kind of what I wrote the book about, trying to tie together factual firepower. Just really, it was astounding to learn about just how corrupt all these, companies and corporations are, and how actually, if you just go dive down these rabbit holes, you'll find out that, like regenerative agriculture and beef, ruminants are the key to saving our planet in terms of the health of our soil. And the same thing goes to Bitcoin, right? Like the energy consumption piece is very nuanced. as Patrick and Dylan know, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview of the book, and it's opened a lot of doors for me. So it's been fantastic.
That's a very, very quick overview of the book. Because Dylan, I'm a little bit upset that you didn't like tell me about this book earlier. Because I was serious when I told you I did buy the book, and as I was reading through it, I got to the part where you were talking because I just started getting into working out too, and I wish I would have read that part about protein when they're like, well, isn't tofu just as good? Well, like, wait a sec. Yes, he explained it. That makes sense. And, my trainer explained it to me too. I used to have to drink, these huge protein shakes and not understanding how these amino acids played into it actually building lean muscle. And these things that you actually get from protein from meat, like bison or like beef, makes a lot of sense. It started connecting dots that I understood were important, but now I understood even why, like more, it's important to actually eat and consume the meat differently than, I'm not gonna lie, I like my sushi, right? And I'm Egyptian, so lentils are kind of my jam too. I love that kind of like legumes and that Mediterranean diet. It's my jam. But at the end of the day, like, I'm pocket steak fan all the way.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. You kind of dive down the rabbit holes, right? And people only understand like macros and what's on the label of a very poor nutritional label from the FDA, which doesn't even usually include any micronutrients. But then, things like vitamin A, things like iron, like they're different forms when it comes from animal foods, from plant foods. And yeah, not all proteins are created equal. And this is still like, I would say like level 2, maybe like everyone's at level 1 understanding. And that's, the calorie counting bros, the macro bros. But if you go to level 2 and start to get into the micronutrients, it's fascinating. And yeah, animal sourced foods for me are the most nutrient dense on the planet. And I just don't think that's up for debate, but it doesn't mean you have to be a carnivore either. It depends where you live and your activity and the whole 9 yards.
Oh, I got to get my carbs in too. But what I will tell you unequivocally is, should you show up at Vegas for the Silver Symposium, I would definitely invite you to come have protein with me and lift with me. And we could just have Dylan also lift with us, take his shirt off. You guys can all have your shirts off and we'll just like all eat steak and lift, because that sounds like a great day to me while we talk Bitcoin. Open invite, bro. If you come to Vegas, we'll have some fun.
That sounds like fun. Yeah, at some point for sure. If not.
Yeah, we have I think it's kind of wild, but I think it's interesting. We kind of talked about this, Tristan, how in the Bitcoin community, and it's even started overlapping with the prepper community, which is where we found our niche. The confluence of these different subjects and topics, like when you start pursuing sound money, when you start realizing the corruption that has happened from this over dependence, over reliance on this fiat system, and you start looking for the truth, it's interesting how these different topics, kind of come together and bring passionate people together. Like for you, it was your health, and then focusing on nutrition, and then you find Bitcoin and you see the truth there. And then for us, for our channel, for our listeners, we obviously have that elements of that, but it's also just like, how can you be prepared, right? How can you make sure? Because like we found out when everything was closed down that if you're wholly dependent on the fiat system to give you your food, supplies, and resources, right, just like that can go away. And if you're not prepared for something like that, you're out of luck, or you're in a difficult position. You may not be able to provide for yourself, your family, your friends, and loved ones. And there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of importance in that we find. I know Patrick has definitely embodied that with his prepping. I've seen some of his stuff, and it's wild. And so I want to ask you on like the prepping front, or getting access to resources, not from just direct the fiat system, but more of a decentralized way. What have you done to do that, to get more decentralized in that respect?
Yeah, totally. It's a hyper local approach, I think, with the food. It's pretty easy if you can just connect with your local community, because you'll find out what grows seasonally, what meats they're raising, and then you can go directly to the producer and secure a relationship with them and understand and verify the quality of their operation as well. So you have all these benefits to buying food locally. Food security, food quality, transparency, and then you're also simultaneously buying higher quality. It's better for your health. It's better for the planet. And yeah, you don't have to worry about the grocery store shelves being empty. So that was like actually one of the first things I did. I think like in 2019, bought a half cow with my sister from a Wyoming rancher that she was friends with, and yeah, it was amazing having that, you know, freezer just full of high quality beef, and I was kind of hooked from there. To be
No,
honest,
and you and I are like, we're smiling, we're laughing, we're like, yeah, we know what that feels like. Freezer full of meat.
Real quick, just for just the actionable prepper element, half cow, what's a good price to pay that from your experience? And then like how much storage space do you need to make sure that that meat is stored and secured? And then like, does this also kind of lead someone down the route of buying a backup generator should their power go out at some point in time?
yeah, that's a good point. So I'm a big fan of the 7 cubic foot freezers because it's kind of like the largest volume you can get before it gets really expensive. So I actually just bought another one, and I got now 2 here, and this is the garage that I'm in right behind me. It was like $190 on sale from Walmart. You know, Frigidaire, so it's quality. That's cheap, and you could probably fit a half cow in there. I'm pretty confident you could. It depends on the cow. So even depends on the bison. Like, for example, we slaughter both bulls and cows. So, you know, it could be a 30% difference. But, you know, hanging weight. So something to know about buying beef or bison or meat in bulk is a lot of times people just price it in the hanging weight of the animal. So the hanging weight means like that's the dressed carcass weight. So that's kind of like not the yielded amount that you will get in your freezer. It's about it's 70% of the hanging weight is probably what you'll get, 60 to 70%. So I think that's important to know. And cost on that, you know, you're looking like under $10 a pound for sure for hanging weight is ideal, I think, for beef.
I would like to answer that question a little bit differently because I see it similar, right? I also like having 7 21 cubic foot freezers, right? Like my freezers are a little bigger because I just go big or go home, right? I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of family, and I'm preparing for my community. And one of the things I like to say is when you are out and you find a good deal, just keep your eyes open on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. You'll find people who are selling those like 21 cubic footers that are maybe like 5 or 10 years old that still really work well, and they just wanted a new one, or their husband just got a new one or something. So get one up like that. That's an easy way. And then when it comes to how much beef you can fit, and I think you're right on the money, like 7 cubic feet may barely fit half a cow, because my 21 cubic foot fits like a whole cow pretty much. And then thirdly, what I would suggest is, what does it cost? I would suggest it doesn't matter. What really matters is you find that local partner that you know is going to raise you good quality meat, and that as long as you can provide for them. And I think the idea is to stop asking what the cheapest amount of meat you could buy is, and start thinking about how much can you help that farmer do his job better. So install irrigation systems with him, and he'll hook you up and give you a great deal, you know, but I pay a little bit more because you develop these relationships and partnerships to help you. So I don't care if I pay $7 a pound. I don't care if I pay $11 a pound. I just really care that I have a cow next year. That's really what I care about. And it's good and it's quality, and I know where it's coming from, and my family can fill those freezers. So I think that when it comes to your protein supply, you know, like you said, you got into it learning about it from the health perspective. I got into it because I found Bitcoin. Then I learned about why they like Bitcoin so much and why fiat sucks. And I learned what else the government's doing. And then I was like, holy crap, look what they're doing to our food. And now I'm here going, I can support farmers differently because of the way I do Bitcoin. You know, I have a friend who's Farmer John. He says, I mine Bitcoin by growing wheat. And I say, I make steak by mining Bitcoin. Like, it's pretty simple. We can do the same things and help each other. But I believe the real answer, Dylan, is it shouldn't really matter as much as finding someone that's going to partner with you. Because at the end of the day, if they're a good partner, they will charge you not $20 a pound or $7 a pound. They'll charge you pretty close to what it costs so they can do it again, and you can help them grow again. And it won't really matter. Maybe this year it's 7, maybe next year it's 4. Help them make it a better deal for everyone is my solution.
No, yeah, I want to chime in on that because I think that's so important what you just said. It really, and I don't even know what's a good deal anymore. Like, it's just, get high quality meat, find the highest quality meat you can get locally. And guess what? It's going to be more expensive than Walmart beef. Why? Because Walmart beef is shit, and it's coming from Argentina or New Zealand or somewhere.
The color doesn't even look real. It's not even real color.
So like everything else, whether it's clothes, whether it's beef, food prices have been held artificially low from subsidies. And I write a lot about subsidies in the book, and just big industrial farming conglomerates. So, chicken should not be $1.99 a pound. Like, that is not real. So when you go to buy a high quality pasture raised chicken from the farmer's market, you're going to be paying maybe close to $8, $9, $10 a pound. And that's probably what it should cost. And guess what? Nutrient density differences matter. I don't know how much is in the book, but it's a little bit. But I've done some podcasts with the latest researchers. Who's actually from Utah State, Stefan Van Fleet. And he's actually researching and proving that there is a vast difference in the nutrient density of meat, depending on how it's raised. Diverse pastures, 100% pasture raised versus grain finished animals, they have a big spectrum of nutrients.
Yeah, this is on page 91 of your book. You've got the chart there about all the different, the superfood nutrient comparison chart.
That's comparing plants to beef, but in general, the research is now out there finally about, just the difference between a cow coming from a feedlot or the cow coming from like your local source. That's the best quality, and it's massive. So guess what? You pay more, but you get way more. And the same thing goes with produce, right? So even though these strawberries in the store might be like gigantic, the amount of nutrients are probably the same as like a wild strawberry that's tiny. It's just inflated in size. So per ounce, you're actually getting less nutrients. So I think people need to look at it with that lens, not the sticker price of cost. They need to just prioritize quality. And again, it's too expensive to eat healthy. Stop buying processed junk. Stop eating out. Cook all your meals. It's not that expensive, really.
Yeah. And this is actually like the point where I want to drop it and say, Jeff, we should put a link like below so how people can support Tristan and get good quality meat, because I'm telling you guys, it's going to become something that very soon, I believe we'll see it very shortly, that it's going to be a huge deal about what's coming out with our beef and what they're doing to our cattle and how it's hurting our kids and hurting our nutritional aspects of our life. Please, if you don't have your freezer full, like, call a friend, say, hey, do you want to split a bison with me? Hey, do you want to do, you can get all ground beef, just get something healthy in your freezer. And it's just this peace of mind when you leave the house in the morning, knowing I don't have to worry about like if my family can eat for a while.
And like you're saying, Patrick, if we don't support these local producers, they won't exist. In years. The meat industry is like, the margins are so slim. So we really need to normalize paying more for higher quality local meat, and chip in with some friends. And it's mRNA vaccines for beef is like a big one now. So
people are just lazy, Tristan. They don't want to actually, when you actually look at a roast itself, if you take a roast and you put that in like a crock pot, you can make so much pulled pork or pulled beef or shredded beef or like chicken and rice, or just, you can get so much even out of one chicken and feed many families if you know what you're doing. People are just lazy. That's what I want
to call out something real quick, and this is a broader point to what is a takeaway from that conversation you guys just have, and then Jeff, we can get to your question. But it's the difference of like, thinking about it on how much does it cost, right? Like, what's a good deal? How much does it cost? And then thinking of it like what you guys talk about of not only you're investing in the local rancher, right? You're supporting their business, but you're also investing in that relationship, right? Yeah. And like Patrick, when you said, like, I want to make sure like next year when I really need a cow, that I've fostered that relationship to where like I get the cow if there's a limited supply, because I've helped this person, their business, their life in whatever ways that I can. And then Tristan, you've also mentioned how you might be paying a little bit more for that pound of beef, but it actually gives you so much more, right? It's not about the ounces of the beef, but the overall quality, and that overall quality over time, right? With good investments, like, we talk about this all the time, it really pays off. And it's the same with something like Bitcoin, putting a little bit there over time, it compounds and really pays off. And I really think that's the difference between having a fiat mindset on this and then having that like, kind of that Bitcoin mindset and thinking about it from that perspective. And so for you listening to this, it will take a little bit of a paradigm shift to snap you out of that bargain hunter deal, finding the cheapest price for that pound of meat, or cheapest price for whatever that is, and just going to the easiest, most convenient source. Because if you always depend on that, you're going to be stuck, and you're going to fall into the trap of, buying the low quality stuff just because you think it's a good deal in the short term, but over time you're going to be paying more money. It's going to cost you much more than you realize. So I think that was a really important dynamic.
There's also like so much opportunity when you start connecting together, because what you might see is like maybe one farmer may have cattle for more expensive than another guy, but it's the same quality, and they're just all about how much feed they're getting and where the price of their feed is. There may be opportunities to help both of these guys together win better for the community. I don't think that these local farmers, it's not about like, they don't really compete with each other. I don't really see that. And I've never really seen one of these farmers really try to price gouge you too much. I've just seen them trying to meet their needs is what I see. So yeah, I love this conversation because I'm passionate about my steak.
Yeah,
I knew I'm going to jump in here because I've been quiet for 20 minutes. I knew walking into this interview, it's going to be hard to get a word in edgewise, especially with Patrick hosting a new show and being a new host. He loves to talk now, especially on passionate topics. And I'm going to talk for a minute or two because I may not get the talking.
Well, then put me on mute, Jeff.
Well, I'm trying to produce it. I'm trying to host. And I'm trying to give Tristan as much airtime, and he's done a great book with a great job with the book, and him and Dylan a great interview. I want to hit a couple points. First off, I think what we talked about a lot, like we talk about this a lot on our channel, community. It's a very big piece of being prepared, so you're not scared. You need to build a community, and you need, like we talk about the power of voting and democratization. We vote with our dollars too. Where we spend our money matters. If you spend it at Walmart or Safeway versus spending it with that local butcher or that local meat producer, it matters. So I think some of the best, like we're talking about deals, some of the best ability is often availability. So when you see a good available deal for, it's not a great deal. I mean, if you see that you've got a good opportunity to work with a local producer, take that opportunity and work with it. But I wanted to jump onto like the book and go back to Tristan here, because I think him and Dylan did a great job with the interview, and we will post a link to that as well. And Patrick, I'll make sure that we get links into the bison that they talked about being directly sold, and we'll get all that on links so that everybody can support Tristan and his community as well. But like I think Tristan did a great job talking about like all the citations he put in the book, like over 200 citations in the book about like all the different talking points you can have to support the arguments. From, like Bitcoin uses too much energy to beef is not healthy for you and CO2. It's all there. But I wanted to pick up on a point at the very end of the interview and talking about community again. And Tristan, this resonated with me because I have an electrical engineering degree too. So I want to hear what your thought is about helping out. Yeah, I mean, like I think in the future, it's not gonna be like, who do you work for? It's like, what skills do you have? And what do you bring to the table to barter with or help your community? So I'm curious, like, and I understand that, we're all we're electromagnetic beings. I get that too. I want to see how that part of your decentralization and your experience with having that background, what that's been with you as part of your journey your last couple of years.
Yeah, totally. Well, just touching on the community piece, I really think everyone needs to think about being like a steward of their community, because it's really probably the most important thing. And I always say this on podcasts that your purchasing power like with your dollars is more impactful than voting at the ballot box, like 100%. And guess where you can make the most impact? Food. We're talking about mics and equipment here earlier. You going to buy that from someone local? I don't think so. What do you buy the most often? You buy food. You can buy that locally. Can you buy your car from a small company? Probably not. So again, just wrapping that thought up, I think it's really important. But getting into, electrical engineering, fascinating, degree. It's really challenging, a lot of calculus, but it kind of put me in a good space. And that's what I'm really interested in, all like the energy side of Bitcoin. I was always into like the grid, how, things function at that level. And now it's been actually really helpful, in the health journey, because inherently our bodies are very electromagnetic. Our world is very electromagnetic. It's very complicated. And diving just deeper into health optimization is, leads you down like a quantum physics rabbit hole as well. So it's really fascinating. But again, I think it's having a multidisciplinary, perspective, which is imperative. And when you talk with a lot of folks, it's really cool. So for me, I got an electrical engineering degree, worked in the semiconductor industry, which is also pertinent to Bitcoin with ASIC miners. But I went really on the business side of engineering. So I became like product manager and things like that. So I think just being well-rounded is important for, prepping, decentralizing your life going forward. You're not going to ever be able to do anything. You're going to need to outsource like specific things to people who have their expertise. But I think being well-rounded is really maybe undervalued. It's something that I, have been like that my whole life. I actually think it was like the who's who I won in high school. It was like, it was like most athletic, most whatever. I won most well-rounded, second and most athletic. So I'm kind of pissed about that. But, but no, it's really important because guess what? Fiat monetary system has led to us not being able to trust the experts. So you have to do that research yourself. You have to go back and, verify these things yourself. So inherently, you need to be well-rounded. You need to learn about money. You need to learn about, nutrition and health. You need to learn about like agriculture if you want to be able to ask the right questions. And you don't need to be an expert. And I think there's this like happy point, or I don't know if I'm going to do this right, but it's like where you get to the point of knowledge where you're like, you got like 70 to 80% of what really matters. And that's like in the X amount of time. But in order to get that last 20 to 30%, you need like triple that amount of time. You don't need to go that deep, but you need to be at least like 3/4 of the way there to be able to ask the right questions and really be educated on what matters. And to me, the topics we're talking about today, the topics I write about, health, wealth, finance, farming, like these matter tremendously in our society. So that's what I decided to, get educated on. And I'm always going to be learning for the rest of my life. And that's, a treasure to be able to do that.
Well, I think you hit on a great aspect of the 80-20 rule. I think that, being well-rounded and having 80% knowledge and being enough to be dangerous. I think just having some engineering background helps in your community, because I've helped people in our community, like putting up a Wi-Fi network or just running power or just simple things like, basics of electricity. You don't need to like do Maxwell's equations or anything. You just need to know, like, how do I get the power from A to B without killing somebody? Like those like basic things and basic mechanics or whatever. And also know your limitations. You build a community. You may not be a mechanic, but if you know a mechanic, you help your community. Like Patrick and I we both been product and program managers too. Patrick's got exposure to healthcare. We see like different areas where we can help out. And I'm not an expert on some things like pew, like Patrick wants to get to in a moment, but I'm going to let him ask that question. But being well-rounded, I think, is it's a great way to help your community. And it's important to know what you know, but also know what you don't know, and like know your limitations, and then find someone else in your community you can barter with and trade, like, hey, I'll help you wire this if you can help make my car go, that sort of thing. So, but Patrick, I'm going to pass you the talking stick here because I know you're dying to ask the next question.
Tristan, I follow you on Twitter, and I saw you helping your community learn new skills that I believe are important to preppers and skills that we should discuss. Could you talk a little bit more about that side of your preparation and skills in that nature and how important that is to you?
Yeah. I think you're talking about, I had a buddy out and we went to the shooting range and
yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Tristan. Thank you.
Shot some rifles, also shot, some handguns, but yeah, it was his first time ever shooting. And, he grew up in the East Coast. Well, I grew up in the East Coast too, in suburbs. And I had no familiarity with guns until I moved out here to Wyoming and wanted to get into hunting. Why'd I want to get into hunting? Because I think that's the most decentralized way. It's the highest quality meat you can acquire. It's the most admirable way, at least the way I did it. I don't know, like Midwest people who just sit in their backyard all day, maybe you could argue that that's not the same. But for me, I got into hunting last year, submitted for tags, was like super stoked that I got a tag, and I was like, oh, I got to figure out how to, shoot a rifle, what to buy. And it's a very intimidating process. So for me, I love talking about it because I think sometimes it's, maybe frowned upon. Hunters don't like you talking about it. And then guns are always like a, a touchy subject, but education and talking about it, this is how we make these things safe. This is how we make, more people aware and able to prepare properly. So for me, yeah, it was quite an experience getting into hunting and buying a rifle. But I think it's really something that everyone should strive for, and putting in the practice. Again, it's like learning a new skill in any regards. You need to put in that proof of work, or else you're not going to be a good shot, and you're not going to have any knowledge about how to do it. But you also need to be kind of humble and ask people questions at the range, or people I didn't really have someone showing me the ropes, so it's kind of all on my own, which was very intimidating. But I'm glad I did it, because then now, I took my buddy out to the range the other day, and I told him, I was like, I just showed him, how a rifle works, how to scope in a target, how to, load the ammo into the barrel and turn on safety, turn off the safety. And I was like, yeah, what I just did for you, man, no one did that for me. Like, no one really showed me how to do that. I had to figure that out on my own. And same thing with the handgun. And it's really important because, personal protection, sovereignty, and if you want to, get into hunting, which who knows, have conversations often that what hunting will look like in 50 to 100 years. I have no idea. But right now, for me, it's the most decentralized way of acquiring your meat. And again, it's kind of like the highest quality you can get. So it's pretty cool stuff.
And I'll round that off with, like, I think it's super important that if you do own a weapon system, you must understand it well. You must train with it. You must understand how it works, because I've heard the horror stories, and even hunters themselves, they really frown upon someone who has a bad target, right? Like, they don't want you to hurt the animal or like cause an unnecessary hunt. So really, it's being able to be proficient with your firearms. If you own one, you must get out and practice, because there's nothing more dangerous than owning a firearm and not knowing how to use it, right? So make sure you understand, when you have a firearm, it is a lot of personal responsibility, and you are responsible for that. But I do also believe why the Second Amendment exists. It's not for hunting. It's to protect us against a tyrannical government. And I'm okay saying that, because that's why I own a weapon system. Mm-hmm. And I believe it goes far beyond hunting. It goes for personal family protection, because one thing I know is I'm preparing for what's coming. And I know a lot of people aren't, and they're just waiting for me to not be prepared and be scared. And it's not going to happen.
And a lot of what Tristan said, and sorry to interrupt there, Tristan, but I just wanted to agree with what you said. Like, I grew up on the East Coast, and I did not own weapon systems either. But, part of my community is Patrick, and Patrick is a weapon system expert, and he showed me what to do. So having somebody be humble, know what you know and know what you don't know. I didn't know how to handle guns to start with, but I'm like, Patrick, assume I know nothing and show me from there, and I'll be humble with it as I learn. And I've learned a lot from him, and now I feel comfortable operating various different weapon systems. I'm still humble about it. I'm still very cautious about it, but you have to learn from somewhere. But find someone in your community. This is the kind of information, like, you've got to learn from somebody. So find an expert in whatever you want to learn, figure out a way to help them, and then they'll help you back. And I just want to point out that, like, we just offered a course, and it's been scrolling around the bottom about becoming your own bank, but we're always looking for other topics to cover. We are considering a weapon system conversation, or a weapon system class. I know Patrick is very passionate about that. So if you guys are interested in something like that, please leave a comment down below. Let us know that you'd be interested in learning from a course like that. We would love to put that together for you as well. So Dylan, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Yeah, I just want to say something that I think is incredibly important as we talk about these topics. It's the cliched quote, but it's the hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And when you think about our journey through history and what has happened over the past 100 years, there's a lot of hard times in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Mm-hmm. But after the world wars, like, we've had some pretty good times. And because of that, like Tristan, you mentioned that no one taught you how to do that with a gun. You had to find that on your own. And back in the day, people were taught that, right? That was normal to be shown how to use a firearm. It was normal to understand how it works, what it does, what's safe, what's not.
It was
safe.
taught in schools.
Yeah. and now, and like that, there's like a natural part of like understanding that we live in a chaotic and dangerous world, and knowing how to defend yourself when and if necessary is a valuable skill. Just like, people talk about the joke in the modern day, like, knowing how to change a flat tire, like those type of things are useful. And I see it just increasingly more that those aren't being taught, and the number of people that if you walk into a room that know how to do those things is becoming less and less and less. And so I think the responsibility is on us here as people that are passionate about those things, but also on you if you're listening, right? You're now informed, and it's on you to go seek out the information, seek out the sources, and seek out those skills that that are important, but have kind of fallen through the cracks and not been passed down. Because if you don't do that, there's going to be no one having these conversations in the future, or they're going to be having these conversations and it's going to be like, well, I wish I would have known how to use that. Otherwise I wouldn't be in this terrible situation. And so, it will take some action on your part. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And like, it's all the fear too. It's like, guys, guns don't just go boom. Like, you have a nail gun sitting at home. It just doesn't fire nails like randomly as it sits in the drawer. That's not how these things work. So just learn how they work. It's not that complicated, and just treat it safely. Keep the number 1, number 2 rules in mind. You never, ever put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to destroy what's in front of you, and always keep it pointed in a safe direction. If you follow those 2 basic rules, you'll never have an injury. You'll never have a gun accident, because there's no such thing as a gun accident, in my opinion. It's gun negligence. So just don't be stupid.
Yeah, I think it goes with everything in this space, right? Like, you have to take the personal responsibility to learn how to, self-custody your Bitcoin, how to operate a firearm, how to, take control of your health, right? Like, no one's going to like hold your hand through these things. All the hand holding is going on in the centralized world. So if you want that, have fun, getting 5 chronic diseases by the time you're 50. It's not set up for that. And that's good, because we want strong men. We want strong women who want to own the responsibility of their life and be in direct control of that quality. And then you meet these like-minded people, and they can help you out, but they're still not going to, handhold you through this process. They're going to give you the important tips and what you need to know. And then, you have to go and do it yourself. So, and there's plenty of information out there. So 100%, I think it's important, and it's exciting to learn new things that are, at that sovereign level.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. I think we could talk for probably another hour or two, because we're all passionate about everything. And I'm gonna post the link over to Dylan's conversation with Tristan. That was another great hour, and definitely check that out. Dylan also hinted at probably another book we talked about, but The Fourth Turning, that you talked about the going back 4 generations and what you've learned and not learned, and hard times and such. But let's focus on today and getting more visibility to Tristan's book, which is Bitcoin and Beef. It's available on Amazon. We're going to put the link down below. And also you can follow Tristan over at Bitcoin and _ beef. That's Tristan. You can follow him on Twitter. And he wrote the book before he even joined Twitter. That's how he went. And he's very personable. He's very approachable. He'll talk about pretty much everything that's out there and tell you about the process of writing the book and getting on Twitter. And as you can see, he's a well-rounded and very approachable and personable individual. So I really appreciated meeting Tristan for the first time in this conversation. And guys, I think any last words?
Yeah, I would say rounded wouldn't be a word I'd use to describe Tristan. I'd say like you're well stacked. That's what I would say.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
I guess one final thing I'd ask Tristan is what are some actions someone can take in the next couple weeks to implement some of the things we've talked about? What would be kind of like the 1 to 3 actions you'd recommend someone to look into that listen to this?
Go to your farmer's market, start talking to people, start talking to producers. I mean, summer is a perfect time. This is when the most stuff's going on. It's when the farmer's markets are, popping. Yeah. And don't just go and buy stuff. Like, go ask them questions. Ask them, how are you raising your produce? How are you raising your meat? Is it 100% grass fed? Are you rotational grazing? Things like that. So I would say 1, put yourself out there, get educated on the food you buy. And maybe 2, try and understand what are the important questions to ask, and what is the difference. So keep learning about that. And then I read a lot about Bitcoin, and we talk about firearms. If there's something in that space that you want to get after, I would say the other action is find someone who's knowledgeable about these topics in your community, your family that you're friends with, and ask them to tell you about it, to show you the ropes so you can get started. So put yourself out there at the farmer's market, and put yourself out there in local communities so you can learn maybe one of these skills that we talked about today.
Yeah.
Well, Tristan, we really appreciate you joining us for today. It was a great conversation. I'm sure we'll have you back. Looking forward to talking in the near future and connecting on Twitter and other places. Everybody go get his book. Everybody support him, support the community, support your local community so you're prepared and not scared. And we will see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, guys.